Welcome, everyone. My name is Marvin Jenkins, and I'm the coordinator for the Women's Business Center for Maryland Capital Enterprises. And we're a nonprofit organization. We assist women entrepreneurs who are either starting a new business or expanding their existing business. We service the Eastern Shore of Maryland, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Anne Arundel counties. We offer a lot of educational events, workshops, like the one you're on today. Plus, we offer one-on-one counseling and consulting, as well as loan assistance, and that includes help with business plans and cash flow projections. We have offices in both Salisbury, Maryland, and Baltimore. So, I'll put this. We are recording this, so you will get a link to the recording so that you can review it at a later time if you choose to. And you also have my contact information. I've got it in the chat, and I've also when you get the link, you'll have my information there also. So, and with that, our program today, Sam.Gov Simplified. I'm going to turn it over to Rosalind so she can introduce herself, and we appreciate everything she does for us. She does such a good job explaining all this detail. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Rosalind.
All right. Hey, thank you, Marvin. I really appreciate that. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for enjoying today's webinar on the System for Award Management, Sam.Gov Simplified. I am Rosalind Davis. I am the president and CEO of Rhoda Business Solutions, a consulting firm that specializes in business process improvement, strategic planning, and organizational development training. I am a woman, veteran, and minority-owned small business located here in the Washington, D.C. metro area. So, I want to also always thank the Maryland Capital Enterprise Women Business Center Director, Lisa Twilley, and Marvin for providing this training platform. But this wouldn't be possible without thanking Ms. Kamalia Blunt of Lord and Tucker Management Consultants, because she was the one that made that connection between myself, Rhoda Business Solutions, and Lisa Twilley. So always want to thank people who made that connection for me. I also want to thank Ms. Portia May of Full Armor Tech for allowing me to use some of her SAM screenshots to develop today's presentation. Full Armor Tech is a global service provider standing up and or upgrading networking infrastructures, cabling installations, automation of smart home, and cloud and software as a service for federal and commercial clients. Full Armor Tech is a woman, veteran, and minority-owned small business located in the Washington, D.C. metro area as well. Finally, my disclaimer. The screenshots that are used in this presentation are actual screen captures from Sam.Gov, but the views and opinions during this webinar are my views and in no way the views and opinion of government or any other entity. Now, what I also want to say is the screenshots may not look like what's in SAM today, because if you go in there from week to week, you'll see that they're always changing some of the screenshots. But the information that I provide to help you get through your SAM registration profile, that is up to date. So I would ask that if you have not done so already, in the top right of your corner, you might want to use your Zoom screen and switch it to the standard view, so then that you could see some of the screenshots have better visibility. With that, I am going to get started with this agenda. I'm going to go off camera because I want you to focus on what's on the slide and not me moving around. All right. Thank you. And if any time you have questions, I'll pause during particular sections and I'll ask Marvin if there's any questions in the chat, or you could just wait to the end, however you prefer. All right, here is the agenda. So SAM, which is the System for Award Management, is the federal government's online database of vendors that are wishing to do business with the federal government. It is for the federal government. So here's the agenda we're going to go through today. We're going to talk about what type of required information and documents, logging on to SAM, your entity registration, and then within SAM, there's 5 core areas that you must complete, and you have to complete those in order. We're also going to talk about the small business certification and the importance of making sure that you have that information up to date, and then submitting your registration. And then I want to conclude with some key takeaways. All right. So in the chat, I have included some links that you can please feel free to download to your computer. But I would recommend before registering in SAM, make sure that you have some required documents that I've listed here on the screen on hand and readily available. For instance, the first document is your employer identification number, or your EIN, that you get from irs.gov for your business. So that, again, the link is in the chat. You must complete this online application in one session because you will not be able to save and return later. So make sure that you have your business information ready to enter into irs.gov to get your EIN. And you cannot use virtual or post office boxes for the physical address. And for security purposes, if you have not completed that application after 15 minutes of inactivity, you will need to start your application over. It will not save, so you'll have to start from scratch. Now, I want to point out that the taxpayer identification number from the IRS, it could be your Social Security number. So those are kind of interchangeable. That's different from the EIN, which is for your business. You also want to have your state business registration documents available. So this will have your company's legal business name, again, the physical address, and the mailing address. Now, your physical and mailing address, they could be the same or they can be different. But I will explain during SAM, you must have a physical address as your primary. You cannot use a virtual or post office. Now, here's just a little tidbit of information I'd like to share with you is, if you haven't done so already, you might want to Google your business name to make sure that it's not already taken. You want to also conduct a domain name search on the internet. Search your business name in your state's website to ensure that the name that you've chosen is not already taken. One source that you can use is called opencorporates.com. That is one website where you can check along with your state as well. And again, the IRS EIN, you cannot use virtual post office boxes. And then I would recommend that you save your state documents on your computer so that you can readily access them. So when you sign into SAM, you can easily find those documents and get them uploaded. The next document is your business bank routing and account numbers. So have that information on hand and readily available as well. Your offerings. These are the goods and services, which are the North American Industry Classification Codes, or NAICS codes, and product service codes, PSCs, that you plan to sell to the federal government. I have included links to both of those so that you can find the offerings that you like to sell to the federal government on those two websites. And you want to populate both of those areas. So even though it says product service codes, don't think of it just as products, because it's also service as well. So you want to make sure that you populate that in SAM. And then your point of contact information. At a minimum, you will need the full name, email address, and the phone number for your point of contact information. And it will ask you for different POCs, which can be one and the same, but I will go into that more detail when we get to that section. And as of last year, only employees, officers, and board members can be entity administrators in Sam.Gov. Prior to that, you could have a third-party certifier enter their information to do your certification, but as of March of 2023, only employees, officers, and board members can be listed. Okay, logging on. In the chat, I've also put the link to Sam.Gov. This is the screen that you'll see. You have to read and accept the terms to advance to the logon screen. Now, your screen may look a little different based on your browser, but this is from Internet Explorer. Now, if this is the first time that you've used login.gov, you will need to create an account. You would enter your email address and then follow the prompts to complete a login.gov account. Now, if you've already using login.gov because you may have used it on another site, it's the same email address and password that you've used for previous sites, but you still would have to log in for Sam.gov. Now, login.gov is a two-step verification process, so make sure that you have access to the method, which it could be email, text, or phone call that you set up for your two-step verification, because it will time out after about 10 minutes. So you want to make sure that you have that available so that you can get logged in. Then once you get that one-time code, you want to enter it on this screen here, and then you would click submit. Moving on to entity registration. So this is what the screen will look like. You are now ready to begin the business entity registration process. You would click the Get Started button as you see here on the screen. Now, as of May 26, 2023, you'll see this screen as a new registrant, or if you need to renew or update your SAM registration after May 26th, you'll now see this particular screen here that asks your specific question. And it'll actually give you a guide if you need the guide to help you get through your SAM registration process. On this screen, it says, what is your goal? I recommend that your goal is to do business directly with the federal government, because if you selected so you want to make sure that you have listed yourself as a prime and you want to do business directly with the federal government. On this screen, who required your entity to be registered in Sam.gov? Again, I decided on my own, because if you list a government agency, then you're going to have to know that company officer who directed you to create a Sam.gov profile. And that person may change, that person may be gone, but decide on your own to register in Sam is the best option. Now, on this screen, it says, what do you want to do? So if your sole purpose is to apply for grants and loans, then register for financial assistance awards only. But if your intent is to be a subcontractor or sub-awardee, then only apply for the unique entity ID, which is the UEI. No business entity registration is required. Just getting a UIE, it just validates that you have a legal business name and an address. Again, but as a subcontractor, you're not a prime, and so you can't do business directly with the federal government. For this particular training session, I'm going to focus on how to register a US-based business in SAM for all awards. So that means by registering in SAM for all awards, you'll be visible to federal agencies and other government contractors that are looking for suppliers. You'll be able to directly bid on federal contracts as a prime or seek federal assistance as a prime awardee. So this particular option is really the best of both worlds. Of note, I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that SAM is for federal awards. If you're interested in doing business at the state and local level, then you have to register with that government's platform. Now, before I move on, are there any questions?
None yet?
All right. So on the screen, it says, are you registering a government entity? So if you are a business, click no, because you are not registering a government entity. You're registering a business entity. So click my entity is physically located in the US. Click next to proceed with your registration. Now, do you already have a CAGE code? So a CAGE code is different from a UEI, the unique entity identifier. The UEI is issued through SAM. The CAGE code is assigned by the Defense Logistics Agency after your registration is complete in SAM. There is nothing you need to do once your registration is completed in SAM to get a CAGE code. Because this is your first time registering in SAM, you would click no that you do not have a CAGE code. Now, this screen is just a verifying that you are registering a business for all awards. This screen here alerts you to some additional sections. So this is where I was saying there's 5 areas that you must complete to register your business entity. So that's why I always caution to make sure that you have the required information and documents already readily available before you go to the next step. This step here is very critical. These 4 elements must match the business name and the address that you used in your state and your IRS EIN registration. For example, if you said your business was Positive Technology Solutions for your state and EIN, you cannot just enter Positive Tech Solutions. You have to spell out technology if that's what you used on your state and your EIN registration. If you submit your entity for validation, it's not going to match. And then you will have to resubmit your documentation to correct it, and it will hold up your registration in SAM. So just be mindful of little nuances about spelling out your business name on your state and your EIN documentation to make sure it matches what you enter into SAM. So on this screen, it says you are getting ready to validate your business entity. So as indicated before, you cannot use a post office box or virtual addresses for your physical location. This is also where you would acknowledge that you could provide official documentation to validate your business entity. And you would just check that box right there at the bottom of that screen. So on these next 2 screens that you see here on the screen, the one on the left, you enter the year and you use the drop down to select your state where you registered your business. And then on the right, it's going to ask you to confirm your entity information is correct. And then you would click, if that's correct, you would click next. This screen here, view the list of acceptable documents. So acceptable documents is your articles of incorporation, your articles of formation. Those are documents that you get from your state. Your certificate of formation come from your state. A state receipt saying that you have paid the fees to register your business. IRS EIN documentation. These are just some examples of acceptable documents that you can use to upload. Although this screen says you must attach 1 or more, you really have to upload 3 documents, 1 at a time. This is critical that you make note of this. You will have to upload at least 3 documents, 1 at a time, and that will allow you to advance to the next screen. If you only upload 1, the continue button will be grayed out. So when you get to this screen here, congratulations, because you have successfully uploaded your documentation and you have submitted your business entity for validation. Now, at this point, you can check your registration status by going to your workspace over here to the top right. As you can see, this business entity is in the draft registration stage. So the entity validation, depending on if everything checks out, could take anywhere from 3 to 5 business days. And if everything checks out, your UEI will be visible the next time that you log into Sam.Gov. So we're going to assume that everything checked out. So when you log into Sam.Gov, you're going to go to your workspace where it says work in progress. Over here to the right, you're going to click on the 3 dots, and then you're going to select update from the entity's action menu. Because at this point, you're continuing to complete your business registration. Now, you will need to revalidate your entity again, except for this time, when you see this screen, your entity should be listed. You click the button that says, I recognize my entity, then click next. And your UEI should be pre-populated on the next screen. So at this point, you will still need to complete the rest of your registration for all awards. Marvin, are there any questions before we move into core data?
None so far.
All right, thank you.
I'm
Core-
sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, my name is Sheila Montgomery. I am finding this extremely helpful.
Thank
I
you,
just
Sheila.
happened to, I was very blessed to just happen to be reading like a Dorchester County paper last week, even though I'm a Howard County person, and saw this class advertised. I happen to work for a woman-owned small business, and we are a staffing company for where we place people on a lot of federal contracts. And so it's a requirement that if we place a lower tier subcontractor, they have to be registered in Sam.Gov, and we need written consent and all this. And my big dilemma has been that because I don't own a company and I've never registered Sam, I have been virtually no help for our subcontractors that have to get registered. So this is worth its weight in gold to help other small businesses register the right way, because the clients, the federal clients, are really nailing down on this. There is a federal acquisition regulation, and it just this kind of thing. Our people can't even start work unless they're fully registered with a cage code assigned.
That's correct.
And what has happened, you just mentioned that it takes 3 to 5 business days. It's only going to take 3 to 5 business days if people do it correctly.
But that's 3 to 5 business days just for your entity validation. You still have to go in and go through these rest of the steps, which can take up to 2 weeks to just get it registered and approved, and then another week or so to get your cage code.
And still only if they haven't made any mistakes, you know, like if they didn't choose all awards or they didn't choose whatever.
Yes.
There was a question I was going to ask you early in, and I didn't unhit my mute button. I think it was about the cage code, just that I'm just mentioning cage code in case others in your audience, like, it's really important if you're doing something with the federal government that you have a cage code as well.
Yes, that is completing your full SAM registration.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Okay,
thank you, Sheila.
thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, so on this slide, core data, it outlines the necessary steps to complete the registration. Unfortunately, these steps must be completed in order. You can't skip around and say, I want to just, do my general information and then I'll come back to my business information. You have to go in order. And then as you complete each of the sections, you'll get a green check mark that'll appear indicating that you have completed that applicable subsection. So I always want to tell people to, at a minimum, read the page description that's in the blue box on every page before you enter any information, especially if you're unsure what they're asking about. On every screen, there's going to be mandatory fields that are marked with an asterisk. And here they're asking for your fiscal year end closeout date. I will tell you that most businesses select December 31st as their fiscal year end closeout date, which is totally different from like the federal government who uses September 30th, but businesses select December 31st is what I've noticed. A marketing partner ID number, or MPIN, is a 9-digit alphanumeric password. This is a password that you create for use on authorized partners' websites, such as grants.gov. For the most part, once you have established this MPIN, you only need it to, if you need to perhaps go in and make changes to your SAM profile, but they've changed it to where you can now get like a one-time passcode. So it's like another two-factor authentication. But if you ever want to go apply for a federal grant, you will need that MPIN number.
Sorry, I have another question. Oops,
Yes,
can you
Sheila.
flip back? Can you flip back?
Absolutely.
Because again, I've got like 40 or 50 people to get registered in SAM, and most of them are just, it's almost like they're self-employed, like a consultant who's formed their own company.
Okay.
So under entity division name, that's just going to be their company name unless it's something different, correct?
Correct.
Entity division number, it's not mandatory. But for the entity URL, because a lot, like I say, a lot of these are one-person companies, they don't have other people working for them. Is it required that they have a website?
No, as you can
Okay.
see, the entity division name and the URL, those are not required fields.
Awesome. Okay, I just want to make sure because again, I can't say how helpful this is for me to be able to help people to get registered. It's going to be awesome.
So Sheila, it sounds like if you said there's that many people, you might want to get with Marvin and Lisa at the Maryland Capital Enterprise to maybe set up a separate section, separate session, you know?
What do you mean by that?
A separate training session for just you if you have that many people.
Oh, no. I have 100 people working for our company, but half of them are independent contractors. I am the only person that handles independent contractors that we place.
Okay.
So it's just going to be me, that will be training new subcontractors what they need to do.
Okay. And Sheila, let's table this because there's something I want to share with you at the end of this regarding
Awesome.
independent contractor versus subcontractor. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's move on. So core data, again, this is the physical and mailing addresses. These will be pre-populated because you've already filled in that information. Now, under the TIN subsection here on the screen, use the drop down to select the TIN type. If you recall, a TIN type is your tax ID number or your social security number. So read the box, enter the information, and select update. And then you would save and continue. So if you recall on the previous slide, which I'll go back one, I use the Social Security number as the drop down. For this slide, it is asking for my most recent tax year as an individual. For example, I started my business in 2022, so it's asking for my recent tax year as an individual, which was 2021. So I would click Save and then Continue. Now, IRS consent, you will see this screen that says for 10 matching, you're going to get a one-time password that's emailed to your login.gov email account. Click Send Password. It's going to send you that password. And once you receive it, you will enter it into the screen to proceed to the next screen in Sam. Now, to allow time for more questions at the end of this presentation, I'm not going to cover each of the subsection under core data because as you can see, there's several of them. But in this general information subsection, the focus of this slide is to point out the security level of a business entity versus a security of employees. So entity security level is the facility clearance for the business, whereas the highest employee security level refers to the employees. Sometimes people mix that up and say, yes, we have cleared facility, where that's talking about the business versus cleared personnel. So I just wanted to stress that on this particular screen. Now, this slide is continuation from the previous one, so you can see the different subsections in SAM. So if you recall the note inside the red slide about 4 slides ago, it states, if you selected the Social Security number as your 10 type, on this particular page, you must select either sole proprietorship or LLC as the general information page. And then you would select your organizational factors or factors that are applicable to your business entity. So as you can see for my company, I selected LLC, but also sole proprietorship. Now, the last part of the general information subsection here on the far right is asking me to select my applicable socioeconomic categories. Now, I want to caution you that the government will verify your veteran and woman-owned socioeconomic certification. So you can check these boxes, but you must be have a certified veteran or woman-owned certification with the Small Business Administration. For instance, if you submit an offer for a woman-owned set-aside and you are not certified through SBA, they cannot award that to you because that particular solicitation was set aside for a woman-owned business. So just make sure that the boxes that you check here, you actually have the certifications for in SBA.gov. Now, review your core data entries before proceeding to the assertion section. This is what the screen is going to look like. Give you another chance to go back through and look at all your core data because you have the green check marks that say that you have completed all those sections. Moving on to the next assertions. So the assertion section, this is where you will select those product and services codes that I talked about, the NAICS codes, the PSC codes. Again, those links are in the chat. You can go to the NAICS, the census.gov, and find the NAICS code that apply to your business. You can do the same thing for product service codes. And then you would enter those into SAM. So for instance, you would put in a NAICS code, perhaps 541611, and then you would click add. And you could add multiple NAICS codes and product service codes. In this subsection, you're going to enter the annual receipts. For instance, if you just started your business this year and you don't have any receipts to report, then enter $1. You have to enter something. And if you're currently the only employee in your company, enter 1. But you can't leave it blank or just enter 0. So then you would enter 1 for both of those if they apply, or whatever numbers apply to your business. Click Save and Continue. Now, in this page description, in the blue box, it says most registrants do not provide EDI information. So here's my plug. I would say keep it simple. Select No, and then Save and Continue. Less is better. The more information you enter into SAM, the more information they have to validate. So if it doesn't apply, put not applicable. And in this case, click No. This subsection of assertions inquire whether you wish for your entity to be included in the disaster response registry. So you would use the drop-down menu to select yes or no. So the disaster response registry, if you think of hurricanes, if you think of the wildfires, that's the disaster response registry that they're referring to. So you would answer yes or no. And then the next question, it talks to bonding. So bonding is mainly for construction companies. So you would select yes or no to bonding from that drop-down menu. Now, if you selected yes for the disaster response registry, you will also need to select the areas where you want to offer your products and services. So you could say for any state or just one state. And if you click multiple states, you can actually select the states where you want to provide that particular service or product. Now, on this SAM screen, you're going to review your assertion information for accuracy. So after each section, you'll get this complete roll-up for you to review it one more time before proceeding to the next section, which is representations and certifications. Okay, representations and certifications, which you often hear as reps and certs. These are written guarantees made by your entity to comply with various requirements, and they are required for the conduct of business with the federal government. So I want to make sure I leave time for questions at the end. I'm only going to cover FAR Response 1. This subsection refers to the person or persons within your entity that's responsible for determining prices offered in your bids and your proposals. So I recommend that you click on the FAR link, and it'll give you more detail and provide clarification so that you can make an informed decision prior to entering the name and title of the individual or individuals who's responsible for that particular FAR response. Now, if you selected an architectural and engineering NAICS code, such as 541330, which is engineering services, then complete this page. You can use the drop-down menu to select the vendor will provide the information with specific offers to the government as the default response. Again, less is better. Click that as a default response, because that way, when you need it, you will provide it. But if you say that you'll provide it now, you need to have that information available. Now, if you did not select the architectural and engineering NAICS code, then this screen is just verifying that, hey, our records indicate that you have not selected this. Are you sure? And the answer could be yes, and you respond accordingly, and then you move on. But on the screen, I want to point out the defense DFARS, which is the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation. The defense has their own set of federal acquisition regulations. So these next two screens you will see in SAM, they refer to DFARS, reps and certs. The first screen, the defense response asks if you wish to bid on or currently hold DoD, Department of Defense contracts, you would click yes or no. If you click no, of course, the rest of the screen will be not applicable. So in the FAR DFAR subsection, there's going to be a list and a link that you are required to read before you can proceed. So here's all the default, the FARs and DFARs ones that you should read. And then once you've read them, you have to certify that you've read them by checking that box that you've read them. If you don't check that box, you will not be able to proceed to the next screen. On this screen, you want to check the appropriate box if you wish to apply for federal financial assistance, such as grants. You can click the applicable box and then click Save and Continue to proceed to the POC section. Points of contacts. So at a minimum, you will need to enter the full name, email address, and phone number of the accounts receivable point of contact. Now, if that individual is the same as your sole proprietorship, your electronic, your government business point of contact, then I suggest that you select copy from, and you use the drop down that says, please select the value, and you ask it to copy it from the previous section. And that way you don't have to re-enter that information 5 or 6 times. But as a reminder, don't forget only employees and officers and board members can be entity administrators in Sam.Gov. You cannot use third-party certifiers. Small business certification. This is very important, and I will explain why. So if you are a small business, I highly recommend that you visit the SBA supplemental page. It's down here at the bottom. However, that link often does not work. So you will have to go and update your SBA profile, and I will talk about that. But upon review and updates, if you exit SAM in the middle of your registration and you go to update your small business profile, don't forget to come back into SAM to complete your registration. You can go through and complete your registration in SAM and then go do your small business profile. I recommend that, but it's your choice. So the link to DSBS, which that's what it's called, the Dynamic Small Business Search, is at SBA Connect. And I have put that link in the chat. Again, you will need your login.gov account information to log into SBA Connect. I'm going to go back to the screen. So the purpose for internet information is for market research. You want to be searchable by the federal government. You also want to be searchable from large prime contractors or other business entities that's searching for teaming partners. That is the purpose for making sure that your small business profile is updated and accurate, because that's how those entities do their market research if they're looking for someone to do business with. So on this final page, again, you're going to review all the information that you provided for accuracy. So if everything looks good, you want to click the submit registration to complete the process. So as I was stating earlier, it could take anywhere up to 10 to 15 business days just to get your business entity registered, to be verified and activate. And then you'll get a cage code assigned, which could take an additional 3 days. But once your registration is active, you will receive a confirmation email saying that your entity registration is active in SAM. Now, some key takeaways. Now, I always recommend that you have the required information and documents on hand before you even begin the registration process. You want to make sure that your business information that you enter in SAM, it matches your IRS EIN and state registration information. Again, the company names must match to the T. So if you said technology, do not use tech. Do not shorten it to tech. You want to complete your entity small business profile, because again, this is how market research is done by the federal government, by large primes, or potential teaming partners. Now, this whole process could take about 3 weeks to complete your entity registration and get a cage code. So be mindful of that. If you perhaps see an opportunity today, it's going to take about 3 weeks to be active in SAM. And without me having an active registration in SAM, the government cannot award your contract. So keep that in mind. Your products and service offerings, your points of contacts, other relevant details, make sure that stays up to date, because the government says sometimes they'll go to SAM and they'll try to contact you, but your phone number has changed or your points of contacts has changed. So make sure that stays up to date. Once your entity is registered and active, you can go in and make those updates at any time, so you don't have to wait until the annual renewal. And sometimes the government will ask you in their solicitation, is your entity active? Or you registered in SAM? And if you state that you are, and the date of your proposal, and they go into SAM and you're not active, that could create a problem for you. So you always want to make sure that your SAM profile is active and up to date, because you don't want to lose an offer because your profile wasn't updated, or you don't want to be protested by someone who lost because they said your profile was not active. Now, once you see this screen, I want to say congratulations that you have successfully registered your business in Sam.Gov. And now you can see that your entity is now active. Now, by doing so, you've made your business visible to federal agencies and prime contractors that are looking for suppliers, but also potential teaming partners as well. Now, I want to say thank you for your attention today. I appreciate the questions. You've successfully registered your business in SAM, and your entity is now active. By doing so, you again made your business visible. Feel free to contact me via LinkedIn if you have any questions, but you can also reach out to Marvin and Lisa, submit your questions to them, and they'll get them to me. Connect with me on LinkedIn, because you'll be one of the first to know about any future webinars, such as Maryland Department of Transportation small business certifications for MBE, DBE, and SB. That's another webinar that is offered through the Maryland Capital Enterprise to help you get those small business certifications. Now, with that, I will see if there's any questions. And then Lisa, I will come back and address something that I said I will follow up with you.
Just another note, when I send the link to this recording of today's presentation, I'll also send the text, the content in the chat. So
Okay.
any of the links in the chat, you'll be able to see, on paper. So.
Okay, and I just put the links again in the chat. And so Lisa, not Lisa, Sheila, you were talking about independent contractors and subcontractors. I just want to make sure that you're aware that independent contractors, let's see how I want to state this.
Well, I think where you're going with this, but it's the federal terminology or whatever. There's lower tier contractors, second tier contractors. There's, people also mistakenly refer to people all the time as 1099s, and they're not really 1099s. You're only a 1099 if you're using your social and you don't have a real company name, or even if you have, but yeah, I'm kind of, I'm pretty familiar. Everybody uses different words, right? 1099, IC, subcontractor. So you really have to have the conversation to figure out what are you really talking about, right?
Right, because some of those people have to be registered in SAM to be awarded money from the federal government.
Right. And Rosalind, you are amazing because, you know, even though there's not very many people participating in this class, your tips that you like, I'm like, oh my goodness, no wonder they're having so many problems, right? Like your tips that you gave today that, you know, if you really have your company name registered with incorporated spelled out and you only enter Inc., there's just so many, you really kind of have to be an expert, right? And one people businesses are not experts at all. So all of this, I just love to serve my people, and I hate saying, look, the government, this is a government requirement, but I can't help you do it because I personally don't own a company and haven't ever registered, and I don't know what you're supposed to pick, and I don't know the screens and all that stuff. So this has been a real eye opener for me.
Thank you, Sheila. I
I
appreciate
mean,
it.
honestly, it's just been, it's nice to be able to sit on the other side of the fence to see the struggles. And you had mentioned at the end, when you said about being fully registered, like you cannot bid on something if you're fully registered. Well, here's what's happening in my world. I have been working for this IT staffing company for 16 years. There's always been a FAR. We've always needed written consent. You know, these are things, but for whatever reason, like the government is really, really paying attention in the past year and this year. And we have had people who cannot start, and their start dates are delayed for 3 or 4 weeks because they're not registered in SAM, or it hasn't been fully processed. And so they're losing a month's worth of income, right?
Yes.
The other twist that just happened this week that I found fascinating, which we're trying to figure out right now as a small woman-owned business, what happens is the government will reach out to us and say, okay, we have this spot to fill, right? And we find people and we submit resumes. When we are talking to candidates, they have a choice. It's their choice. Do you want to, if you get a job offer if you get a job offer, do you want to join our company as an employee or as a subcontractor, right? The government, now we just learned from a client this week that now we can, if people want to be a subcontractor, we get their resume, we talk to them, they're interested, we're interested, they have the qualifications. We now cannot even submit a subcontractor's resume unless they are already registered in Sam.Gov, which blows my mind because we're talking about one people companies. We're not talking about big companies. It's all small business, and they're losing opportunities, right?
Yeah,
It's such a shame that there's not more people on this meeting right now, because if you own a small company, whether you ever intended to do business with the federal government or not, you should do this, because if you don't, somewhere down the line, it's going to bite you, right?
and that's where I was saying that, there's a distinction between someone saying they're an independent contractor and they're a subcontractor that wants to get paid by the federal government.
Right.
It's, if you want to be an independent contractor and just do commercial business or state business, then you don't have to be registered in SAM. But if you want to do business with the federal government and get paid by a federal government, you have to be in SAM.
Absolutely.
And the annual registration is not significant. It's just a matter of going in and making sure all your information is up to date. But again, I tell people, don't wait until the annual renewal to make your updates. You can do that
Right.
at any time.
Right.
And that way, when you get to the annual renewal, it's just, oh yeah, I remember I just updated this 2 months ago.
Right. You don't think valid point. And it's very hard as an individual. Everybody's not super detail oriented, everybody's got their talents. And unless you're really, if you move or something changes as an individual and an owner of a company, think of all the bazillion of places you need to update your address, right? It's a lot.
Yeah. And I also would recommend, don't rely on the system to give you that annual re-notification. I actually add it to my calendar.
Calendar, that's what I
Yes.
do. I just,
I don't want to miss that window.
no, my calendar is full of reminders, like if a client contract's expiring or this or that, I would never be able to keep it straight. I'd be forgetting about things left and right.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the feedback. Thank everyone for attending today. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Marvin.
Yeah, and once again, thank you, Rosalind. A lot of very good information. It seems like everybody's, getting a lot out of it. So that's really good. So stay tuned. I mean, I'm sure we'll have these Sam.Gov webinars again, and like you were mentioning, some of the other the MBE and the DBE, and we'll have those. So and when I send out the link, I'll also have a link to our website so that anytime we have the training events, they're all listed there, and you can register right through the website. So that everybody will get that in my email. So unless there's any other questions, I guess we'll call it an event. And again, Rosalind, we appreciate you, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you very, very soon.
All right. Thanks, Marvin. Everyone have a great day.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh my God, that was like the